Yes,
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Happy?
Yeah. You are.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Let's make a start. Apologies for the late start to those of you online. We've got an away fixture today, and there's always just a few more logistics and access to the building and things. So we're here now. We might be joined by some colleagues who are probably looking to get access into the building later. So we'll try and introduce them as they arrive, so you can see who's around the table. It's very strange speaking when you can't see a microphone, but we're reliably informed that the sound is good in here. But if I could just ask people online, just keep us abreast on the chat if it isn't. But if you don't say anything, we'll presume that you've got us okay. And welcome to the last ever South Yorkshire Mayoral local enterprise meeting. So very auspicious, and also our AGM. So I should start by introducing myself for who doesn't know me. I'm Mr. Stubbs, Chair of the LEP. We have a number of people online, actually probably a little bit more than I was expecting. So I think it would be useful for us just to check who's there. So Kevin, let's say hi.
Hi everyone, Kevin Kerrigan, Pro Vice Chancellor Business and Enterprise at Sheffield Hallam University.
And Ben?
Hi, Ben Morley from Sheffield Council. I'm here on behalf of Kate Joseph, and I think Councillor Hunt as well now.
Thank you, Ben. Philip?
Hi, I'm Philip Cooper. I'm here from the South Yorkshire Combined Authority.
Thanks, Philip. Paul?
Morning, Richard. Morning, everyone. Yeah, I'm Paul from the MCA. I'll be boring you with some slides soon.
And Bill?
Yeah, hi everyone. Bill Adams from the TUC. Not only my last attendance at the South Yorkshire LEP, but one of the last attendances of my career, because I'm resigning. I'm retiring on the 28th of July.
Congratulations.
And thanks to everybody for all your help and advice over the years.
Well, no, thank you likewise, and I'm sure we all wish you a very happy retirement. Hopefully you've got at least some tickets to the Ashes or other summer sporting events to look forward to. And then we've got Team Doncaster, so Ros.
Hi, Ros Jones.
Thanks, Ros. Hi, and Damien.
Hi, Damien Allen, Chief Exec. Can I just say I'm looking forward to Paul's boring slides and hoping that they'll feature in any successor bodies as well.
Thank you, Damien. Lovely to see you, Damien.
Thank you very much.
And then we'll just quickly go in the room. So, Sarah?
My name's Sarah. I'm a Democratic Services Officer, so I'm servicing the meeting today.
Morning, everyone. Anthony Gates, South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority.
Joseph Quinn, South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority. Apologies, it's been a long week.
Yes, I can imagine. Peter?
Peter Kennan, LEP board member.
Neil
MacDonald, LEP board member.
And we're also joined by our purpose, Justin.
Yeah, so we got a couple of interlopers from government, so Justin Home Message and local growth unit, and Alex Blake, also from the Citizen Growth Unit.
Thank you everyone for that, very useful. And as I said, if we do get anybody joining us in person, we will do our best to find a gap and say hello. Sarah, I've got apologies from Louisa House from Walker. Any other apologies?
Yes, so Steve Houghton, Councillor Tom Hunt, Professor Kern Lamberts has sent his apologies. They said that Yasmin Knight would come on his behalf, so might come in partway through the meeting. And then we've got some other colleagues who aren't with us yet, who may come in during the meeting.
We'll explain that, I think, in our first item. Declarations of interest. Can I just ask everyone in the room and online, do any members have any declarations of interest for any items on the agenda today? Not seeing any, so thank you. If something occurs to you later, please do shout. And minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of May and matters arising. So just to start with, are members content that the minutes are an accurate record of the meeting? Thank you, some nods. And we have updates in the action log that's part of the pack. You'll see that most actions are now closed. in the interest of time and expediency, does anybody wish to pick up on any of the actions that are either closed or any of the updates that have been given? Okay, thank you. Let us move on. So we've taken a decision, hopefully people are happy with this online, that we're going to actually just move the agenda items slightly, and we're going to promote, for reasons which become obvious, agenda item 8 on South Yorkshire's investment zone, and ask Josie or Andy, please just lead a presentation.
Brilliant. Thanks, Richard. Thanks all. So the reason we're messing with the agenda and the reason we've changed the location of this meeting, the reason there's a little bit of flux in terms of where everyone is, and hopefully most of you will be aware of this. But in about 45 minutes' time, the Chancellor will be, which I'm pointing here, so you can see that. The Chancellor will be about 50 yards away from us, launching the first investment zone in the country, South Yorkshire's investment zone, which is great news. So there is a big splash, just in terms of media and things like that. It's all under embargo until tomorrow. So what's happening is there's a visit which is fairly low key in how it looks today. There's no big shiny launch event. But the Chancellor's seen the MRC. There's various national press, regional press. The Mayor is Oliver's flown back from his holiday to join it. Quinn, the VC of the university's meeting, Chancellor, along with Steve Foxley. So Chancellor's getting a tour, seeing what's going on and making the announcement about South Yorkshire Investment Zone, which is brilliant. Testament to kind of the pace we've worked at. We being the royal we, LA's, Joseph and Tom Bousfield and colleagues. So we're really proud of that, really pleased with it. The second bit, which makes it really exciting for us, is normally this would be the first big shiny. The only announcement would be the investment zone, but actually within the same announcement, we're also confirming it's got various names, this project, Icons, Compass, it's got all sorts of acronyms, but it is effectively a brand new research and development facility at the AMRC, over £100 million of public and private investment and SYMCA funding and Sheffield City Council SYMCA funding to make it happen. Normally it would have its own billing, this type of announcement, but today we're sort of putting those things together as a package, and tomorrow that should make some noise. So we're playing the Boeing investment as a kind of anchor of the new investment zone, which it is, it's physically here, but what's really exciting about all that is the opportunity that Boeing investment potentially brings £2 billion worth of GVA to the UK economy each and every year, subject to the R&D proving the concepts which we think it will prove. We need to do the homework to prove it. What that will do, though, is create a green aerospace specialism in South Yorkshire, and then you take that aerospace specialism and take it to automotive, to nuclear, to clean energy production, to turbines for wind farms, whatever the applicability of the research project that Boeing will be doing with the AMRC, the University of Sheffield AMRC, is hugely significant. So we're really excited about it, and it's sort of worked pretty hard to get it to land. And it is nice that we're doing it on the same day as the investment zone. Is it just worth saying Oliver's due? I was going to say, colleagues online, if you couldn't say Oliver, Martin and Tom have managed to come over, so thank you for that. I know it's a very busy day. As you can probably imagine, we've just promoted the investment zone item of the agenda to explain to colleagues. Not good spot anything from Andy's.
I mean, I can read you what I'm about to say if I get asked by the press, if you want, and give you a preview of what my comments. Very proud to launch. No, genuinely, I think this is a really important moment for us. The Boeing work has been a constant in my time as mayor, and sort of trying to get this over the line has been no easy or small task. And credit to officers that have worked on the process, both from our side and clearly from the University of Sheffield, because I know that this has been fraught with difficulty. So I'm genuinely excited about it. I think that it's a massive deal for South Yorkshire. And then that is also kind of coming on top of the visit that we've got today, and the sort of announcement about the investment zone more broadly. So I'm just thrilled that we've been able to kind of get all this done, and that today is the culmination of months and months and months of hard work, not to say actually probably years of hard work, clearly, to give us the opportunity to put it in a place where this is the sort of stuff that we can do in South Yorkshire. And it really genuinely feels quite poignant to me, not least to be here today for the last LET meeting and be doing that work, which is about the future trajectory of South Yorkshire and the future economy of South Yorkshire. I think that's quite a big moment. So I'm actually quite moved by that, and I'm really proud and pleased that we've been able to kind of come to this kind of moment together. So yeah, that's all I'd say. Really.
No, thank you, and thank you for the time. So I know we all appreciate the day you're going to be having. So very grateful for you. Any questions, comments, either online or in the room? Martin?
Yeah, just one quick comment actually about the Boeing project. I think it's a great example of cross-government working too, national government, regional, local, acting as one, government to government. So just in various colleagues in Treasury, Tom and I know, and other departments, BAs, everyone has leaned into this. So I think it's I just wanted to acknowledge that co-production, collaborative work, and I think government, university, private sector collaboration at its very best.
Yeah, thank you.
You've just got to endorse that private sector members. I think it's really exciting. I think you're right. It really looks to the future. This is into something, but the start of something really great. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as we always talk about the stories, it'll be interesting to see tomorrow, as it becomes more public, how we land that one-liner for our residents to understand what does this mean, you know, for us, what does it mean for the future, and how can we translate that so that people actually get this and what it means for them. I'm very interested to know what do I say when I go home and say this is what's happening? Yeah, what's that one-liner?
And avoiding the so what.
Yeah. Right.
Would anyone like to see the promotional video for the Isaac?
Yes, please.
Excellent.
Is that the right answer?
That's the correct answer.
It is, as long as my production values don't say, have you got sound? The ability to put sound?
I've no idea.
It should work.
Okay.
We will
share audio.
We're flying.
I'm not intending to.
These aren't. This isn't accurate.
We're in the crucible of innovation right here. So
I know I'm money.
I'm going to press play and see what happens.
You get the idea.
Yeah. Brilliant. We almost got to the end of that. Colleagues, don't know if you could hear any sound on that, but it was just instrumental modern music. Andy, is that going to be available publicly?
We will send you there's a full brochure. Tom's
Yeah.
pulling a face.
Everything is embargoed till midnight tonight.
Yeah,
If
yes,
we break that embargo, we're in trouble, but we can share the document, the website and the video as long as you're pleased enough to forward on.
Yeah, but from tomorrow, you'd like us to show it from like
From 1 a.m. tomorrow,
Yeah.
share as far and as you
I
can.
think that's what I'm looking for, is you
Yeah.
want this out there
Yeah.
from tomorrow. Absolutely brilliant. Thanks. Any further reflections or questions? No, well, wish you all the best with the events.
Just wanted to just
go on,
mention
Peter.
a side issue from it, which is this week, I saw that Renault announcement as well about Renault Geely setting up a headquarters in the UK for powertrain solutions and sustainable fuel. And it seemed that was an area where we were well placed at the University of Sheffield. I just didn't know whether there was any communication going on.
So Renault have been speaking to an investment arm of Renault. Have been speaking to city taxis for a while now. I was involved in that conversation last year.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's related, but it was about a test bed for transport as a service.
Yeah, this is more of a corporate.
Yeah, and new forms of vehicle delivery.
Yeah.
So they've got a way in there, is all the point I'm trying to make.
Well, because they've announced the joint venture this week and they want a corporate HQ in the UK, it seemed as
yeah.
Never satisfied. Never satisfied.
No.
Always looking for the next one.
It's maybe worth talking to Arnie about whether or not we could get a link into there, because I met their chief exec last year, just over here actually.
Yeah, it's Renault Geely. It might be a done deal, or if you signed up somewhere, couldn't it?
Thanks. Let's bring in Kevin.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks to Joe, Andy, and Tom, and the wider team for massive amount of work done in such a short period of time, and they've been really collaborative and engaging with ourselves and other stakeholders around the region. So I think it's been a really good example of how you can really produce something that's really quite compelling in a short period of time. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Kevin. Right, if everyone's happy, we'll move on from that very exciting agenda item. Very to open the meeting. Paul is going to fill a Felix-shaped hole and give us a great presentation on the South Yorkshire economy. Paul, no pressure.
Thanks for that, Richard. And yeah, nice to see my bribe to Damien paid off. And also getting relegated down the agenda. I'm used to that, being a Wigan fan. Right. Have those slides come up?
Yep.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so yeah, just try and rattle through this. Obviously, there's quite a lot happening in the economy at the moment and the impacts on South Yorkshire. So in terms of, we've done Felix Idia before expertly, the summary statistics for South Yorkshire. I guess the main one really for us is that unemployment started to go up recently, but positively, economic inactivity has been falling. I'll come on to more detail later. Yeah, in terms of wages, yeah, we've seen obviously a lot of coverage in the press about this. Obviously, wages have been increasing still not keeping up with inflation, and obviously real wages are still way behind. But this recent growth that's been, I guess, a bit surprising in recent times, the wage growth, it has been in the private sector that's been driving that. And in terms of job vacancies, they have been falling for a number of months now, so the labour market demand is starting to fall a little bit, but the main point is there's still over 1 million vacancies, so we're seeing progress in that in terms of what we need for the economy, but it's still over 1 million jobs vacancies. You might struggle to see some of this, but breaking it down by sector, it's not uniform across the economy. We actually there's still really high vacancies in public services and hospitality. So it's quite different by different sectors. And looking at the wages as well, in terms of wage growth by sector, there's actually a bit of a mismatch. So if you look at the bottom there, you've got the public services, you've got hospitality. they were the ones with the biggest vacancies, but the wage growth has been lower in that, where you've seen the wage growth in professional jobs actually above inflation. So we have got a bit of a mismatch with the vacancies and the wages, which isn't helping things. In terms of the claimant count lately, it's been fairly stable lately across all the different local authorities. But the big point I'd say is in the economy is that economic inactivity has been falling, and the colours aren't great on this one. But if you look at the top one there, I think it's in black, that is inactive men. That has been falling a lot lately. So what we're seeing is a bit of an unwinding of the pandemic impacts. We're starting to see that now, is that you've got men who were economic inactive either returning to work or looking for work. So that's a positive. But despite the headline news of economic inactivity falling, which is obviously really positive, we've still got the huge issue of the reasons for this being long-term health. That is a real problem. It's still the highest region, and the biggest chunk of the reason for our economic inactivity is people with long-term sickness. And looking at in South Yorkshire, it's a bigger issue for us. So if you look at the orange line, that's for the UK. So if you look at that cohort of economically inactive people, it's about 1 in 4 across the country are due to ill health. In South Yorkshire, it's 1 in 3. So it's a much bigger issue for us than the rest of the country. And it's not just older people. We've seen a lot of over 50s. That's been a talk of the labour market and some of the issues. This long-term ill health is also affecting young people as well. And this has been rising for a number of years across the country. And you might struggle to see on this, but breaking it down by region, actually South Yorkshire is the highest region in England for our young people who are economically inactive. And this is due to ill health. Now, we've got loads of work that we're focusing on. It's obviously a massive agenda, priority for Oliver as well. But it's really just ramming home the point that it's, at the headline level, it's good news about economic inactivity falling. But in terms of ill health, it's still a problem across the country, and especially in South Yorkshire. I just wanted to have a quick update on obviously the impacts on housing and particularly on mortgages. Obviously, we've seen a lot of this in the press, and people will be seeing this. But a lot of the pain is still to come. This chart is showing that you've got a lot of people where their mortgages are up for renewal, and the ones in dark green are the ones who are currently on rates of under 2%. Lighter green is about 2.5%. These are people that when their mortgage is up for renewal, which we're going to see over the next coming months, there's still hundreds of thousands for that to come. They're going to get a real shock. And we've seen in the news, the Bank of England yesterday, real headline statement that they're estimating there's going to be an increase of £500 in monthly payments for up to 1 million households by 2026. That's £6,000 per year, which is effectively a pay cut of £10,000. And there's also £250,000 households where this will go up for like £1,000 a month, which would be a pay cut of £20,000. So we're talking huge numbers here in the impact across the country. And it's not uniform across by age, it's more younger people. And I'm saying, despite my receding hairline and my grumpy approach to life, I think I'm actually classed in that 30 to 39-year-old category. But it is mainly young people that are going to see the bigger increase in the monthly payments and the hit to disposable incomes and the knock-on effects we'll see on the economy with that. And actually looking at the geography of this, it's more the south and the east that are going to see the biggest impacts of this. That's not downplaying it, obviously, across the north. Now on this one, I've done a bit of a quiz with some of my friends, because that's how exciting I am on this. And it's not exactly statistically valid, but asking this question, I've given the results here. But it's most people are quite surprised to find out that more people currently own their house outright rather than have a mortgage. So the top blue line there is 37% of people own their home outright, whereas 26% have a mortgage. And you can see, actually, if you go back 10 years, it was level. It's been widening lately of more people owning the house, and you can see there's a bit of a break since COVID. Some of the more wealthy people increasing their wealth, buying more of their own homes. So again, not downplaying anything, but these rising interest rates is going to benefit a large chunk of people, and this mortgage impact is probably not affecting as many people as some might expect. But obviously for those people, it's going to be a huge hit. And just in terms of the local data, it's following national trends. You see Barnes in Doncaster there. This is the number of people owning the house outright. Barnes in Doncaster are right at the national average, and Rotherham and Sheffield not far behind. Similar of that decreasing amount of people with a mortgage. So we've got a similar rates here in South Yorkshire. This is probably because we've got, in terms of our housing affordability, that's looking at house prices compared to wages. We actually do quite well on that with our cheaper housing, quality of life. Now this map here, Joseph will think I've been being biased towards Penistone, but I don't normally share maps. This is the darker colours, the more impacted ones. This probably isn't the one you normally expect. It's in terms of like the most deprived areas that are normally the hardest hit. But this is looking at financial vulnerability specifically on mortgages. So the darker colours, they're the areas that are more likely to spend a large chunk of their income on the mortgage. So you've got west of Sheffield, you've got Penistone, those kind of places that they're going to be likely more affected by this. It's not taking anything away from people, the cost of living crisis, particularly acute in the more deprived areas. But on this housing point for mortgages, it's more your rural areas that are going to be impacted more by that. I just wanted to quickly finish, because obviously it's the last meeting of the LEP, and over the last decade or so, the amount of money that LEP's invested, I thought it'd be good just to look at like where we've come from and where we've ended up. Now, we know a lot of the economic indicators, we're not particularly happy with where we are. We're still behind a lot of national indicators, and the investment zone is going to change a lot of that. But actually, in terms of, there has been a lot of progress. Look at the unemployment rate, that has plummeted over the last 10 years. If we look at jobs and density, so the blue line is density, the orange bar is the number of jobs, that's been going up. There's also a little bit of a pause there with the Brexit impact when that started. But overall, the trend, we have had more jobs, and also we need more. But in terms of the numbers over the last decade, since the LEP's been here, it has been positive. Looking at startups, similar trend as well in terms of jobs. Pay, we know we're still way behind the national average, but yeah, but it has been increasing. So, and lastly, in terms of GVA, this is the big one. Obviously, a bit slightly lower as you'd expect during 2020. I think something big happened that year. But if you look at that every year, it has been increasing. So things have been improving. Obviously, it's not where we want to be. We're still behind our comparator regions. But in terms of the impact we've been having, there has been more jobs. Things have improved on the main economic indicators in GVA, and I think that's a testament to some of the investment that LEP's done. I'm sure Andy will talk about that more. I'll leave it there, Richard, unless anyone's got any questions.
Thank you so much for that, Paul. Brilliant. And well done on getting through some of the slides so well. I've got a couple of questions. I'm sure we've got others as well. Just on the economic inactivity section, and particularly that you focus on young people due to ill health, I'm really curious if we're able to drill down on the ill health reasons, and if that's genuinely musculoskeletal, which it is for most people who are economically inactive, or if it's something else. I'm just wondering what the reasons for that ill health would be.
Actually, Rich, I had exactly the same question. So we've actually got someone exploring that this week. We've not got the data yet, but we've got a research task to drill into that. I've seen some national data on it in terms of breaking it down by reasons, but we're trying to find out locally what that is. We've also I've done some work with Hallam at Cresa. They've done a piece of work on drilling down on economic inactivity. So we've actually got a lot more data, and I know that's feeding into the commission with Barnsley that they're looking at. But yes, so I don't know the answer to your question right now, Richard, but we are working on that. So we're trying to improve that data source of trying to drill down into the specifics. So I'll get back to you on that.
No, thank you. And I think when we understand that more, I think a conversation with the Integrated Care Board and Integrated Care Partnership would be incredibly useful to understand how we can ensure that services are optimally aimed at some of those groups, with the economic business case being to the fore as to why. But I'm sure we've got somebody here who can talk to the Integrated Care Partnership about that. Paul, my second question was about impact on renters. So we know, obviously, from a buy-to-let perspective, there's going to be a lot of pain that's either going to have to be absorbed by landlords or passed on to renters. Is that a point of vulnerability for us as well, or do we not have that data?
We do, and that was probably my fault. I actually did have some slides on that are cut out due to time, so I can send you those after, Richard, because actually, yeah, some of the impacts on particularly linked to housing benefit and the affordability of that, some real acute issues with especially new properties of just the prices have been shooting up. And I know this is a problem in Barnsley in terms of people on housing benefit. You used to have, if you're on housing benefit, it was roughly a few years ago, there was about 20% of properties you could afford. Now it's less than 5% across the country. And in Barnsley, it's actually, I think they're in the top 20. There's only 1% of rental properties you can afford if you're on housing benefit. So I'd say, yeah, I'll share that afterwards, but we have got data on the rental sector. It's not just people with mortgages. There's some really serious impacts across the housing issue. So yeah, I'll share that afterwards, Richard.
Thank you so much for that, Paul. Any questions, comments from the presentation, Peter?
Thanks, Paul, for the presentation. Very thought-provoking. I was interested in that slide to do with the people most affected by the mortgage interest increase. Is there any analysis in terms of jobs and GVA impact? Because if you are in a wealthy area, your spending ability may be higher than some other areas, and therefore there could be a knock-on effect onto retail and hospitality and other sectors. I just wonder if we've got anything in terms of what might happen in terms of jobs and GVA as a result of those increases.
Yes, it's a very astute point, Peter. I think that overarching point about the hit to disposable incomes, that's going to be massive, and that's going to be across different income groups. But in terms of, we've not, that data was actually really helpful from the South Yorkshire ODA on the financial vulnerability. We've not got anything right now in terms of jobs and GVA, but that's something we could look into, Peter, absolutely. And we can get back to you on that. I think that'd be a very useful data research project for us to undertake.
Thanks, Paul. And I think, Oliver, we've had a conversation, haven't we, informally about some anecdotal information from hospitality owners seeing a decline in that discretionary spend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very anecdotal. We can see the trends starting to form. Yeah.
I read a thing the other day saying that over the course of COVID, households saved, I think it's 200 billion. I think I've got that right. And the thinking is that actually a lot of the kind of long tail has been actually households spending some of those savings, but it just feels to me as though the kind of mortgage change is what's kind of potentially kind of breaks that.
Yeah.
And so kind of people's disposable income kind of could drop quite rapidly, and that's certainly the anecdotal evidence I've heard from hospitality.
Thank you, Peter. Anything else? In which case, thank you very much, Paul, for that. On to agenda item 5. Yeah, you guys
have to go to our next bit of the day, but
no, thank you very much. Just let colleagues know. So Tom, Martin, Oliver obviously have to leave for an important 90 minutes. So good luck with that. But also to let you know, we've done about Yasmin as well from the University of Sheffield.
Can I, before I go, because I realise this is the last one of the year. I mean, I said it a moment ago, but like I always feel quite sort of like this quite a poignant moment. For me personally, I was involved in the lab when I worked here over 10 years ago. So to then kind of come back and now be in this position where we're doing what we're doing, like I say, kind of not just the big picture stuff, but the change that we've made to the lab is quite a significant moment, I think. So for everybody that's kind of made things happen, not just the current group, but actually, you know, for those, I'm sure they're all going to watch this online at some point, to all the people that have been involved over the course of the lab's time, I think it's worth saying genuinely a huge thank you. It is only because of the work of people like you around this table, who most people will never realise, you know, the work that you do, but it is genuinely significant. It really is, and it allows us to do the things that we are doing today. It allows us to launch the Boeing project, the investment zone, bring the Chancellor here because of this organisation. So genuinely, thank you for all the work that you've done and the way that you've done it. And I'm afraid none of you get off scot-free because we're all going to be calling on you for various things to work with us in the future. But for now, thank you to everybody that's played a role.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. And good luck.
Yeah, good luck.
We'll be keeping you with person from.
Good to see everyone. Thank you.
If you wouldn't mind mentioning NHS.
First thing I'll say.
Thank you.
I'll take it back.
Okay, thank you for that, everyone online. So we'll move on to agenda item 5, the annual report and the government change and the other movements.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the paper does two things. A, introduces the LEP annual report, which is attached in the appendix. That report sets out fairly succinctly what we as the LEP have been doing, influencing over the last 3 years, right through from strategy and policy engagement. We list out lots work where the LEP have informed that. We talk about some of the active programmes, particularly through the thematic boards. So we often forget that LEP board members are very active in thematic boards, and the decisions that come through on housing and infrastructure, on business growth, on transport, they've all had their tyres kicked and informed by LEP board members and the LEP. So we don't, because they're MCA decisions, they don't always sort of get the LEP light, but it's just worth noting, and report does that. I did say that I just wanted to sort of lift it up a little bit, and sort of Paul very nicely sort of set out the 10, 13-year kind of programme. Oliver has just referenced it, but I was just going to sort of make a few wider points. One, that going right back to when I joined the LEP, there was a really big discussion going on at the LEP board about regional growth funds, which was a £50-odd million programme devolved to the LEP, which was a business support package. We said we could do it better. And on RGF, the regional growth fund, we did. But the really interesting thing, I think, in terms of today's conversation, was that the LEP agreed to split it down the middle. They said 26 million of that 52 million for indigenous businesses, grants and support to businesses here. We carved out the rest to do foreign direct investment. And out of that was where we funded the first McLaren investment. That laid the sort of ground for the Boeing investment. That laid the ground for the hybrid air vehicle investment and the ultimate battery company. We established a precedent at that point, and that was a LEP decision to do that, when we have loads of infrastructure projects to sort of fix as well. So on the back of that, that's why today's IZ announcement is here. We also made some key commitments. University of Sheffield colleagues will, I'm sure, remember that 10 million quid went into a piece of kit at the lightweighting centre, which was, again, why McLaren were interested. Why are we building out this capability around composites and lightweighting, which is why we've now got sustainable aviation. You know, so to put money into things that have made today happen. The gene therapy innovation manufacturing centre just over the road, they put in a little bit, the LGF money to support, get that over the line. Nothing against me because it was hard work getting it done, but we got it done. The National Centre for Child Health Technology is the most recent investment into a physical R&D asset, which anchors further development of the Lincoln Legacy Park. So the point I'm labouring is that the decision the LEP took a long time ago have kind of paved the way for where we are today. Skills Bank is another example. It was the private sector board members on our LEP working with the local authorities that said, is there a way of using public money to co-invest and get private investment into their workforce? Skills Bank is still one of the most innovative models that secures co-investment of public and private money. In the investment zone brochure, when you see it, you will see that we are talking about making sure that IZ money supports skills bank initiatives for businesses looking to locate on the investment zone. So across a whole range of things, the LEP have made that impact. And so that was the sort of point I really wanted to make. So I think it's important to log it. Just going right back to things in the paper and the sort of annual report, just worth saying, for every £1 of local growth fund investment, it's expected to return £67, which is a high number. That's a really good number, and that's confirmed through our proper sort of evaluation process. It's not just us making it up. So we have unlocked an enormous amount of additional investment through the local growth fund, and that was LEP money invested really wisely. So that's that bit. I think both leaders on the call and the private sector board members are pretty well briefed on the changes to the governance model. The MCA in June set out that we were winding down the LEP and replacing it with a business advisory board and a mayor's economic advisory council. Paper sets out really the terms of reference for that business advisory board, which, how you are aware, is recruitment is now live. I'm really conscious that many of you are pushing that out across your networks and seeking a different set of business voices to join our chambers and the FSB, colleagues in our business representative groups. That recruitment process goes on for another 3 or 4 weeks, which is great. And we intend to have a new business advisory board up and running in September, all being well, and really grateful to Neil for sort of his guidance and steer and some support coming up in terms of the process. Richard, we hope, will be part of the recruitment panel. So that's all moving in the right direction, and I'm pretty confident we'll get some really good, strong applicants for that business advisory board for the recruitment process. Good. So unless you want me to sort of run through the report in detail, I think that's my whistle stop.
No, I think we've all got the report. Thank you for that. I was actually just reflecting to myself that actually the video we've just seen is a very good advert for the business advisory board. Absolutely. Recruitment. So I think I'll be putting the two of those things together on social media to get people's attention. Yeah. No, thank you. I think that's plenty. So we've got effectively a few things on this item, but let's start with the annual report. Does anybody want to make any further comments about the report itself?
Is it in final format?
No, we can.
Because I'm not pro-Chancellor of Sheffield University anymore. I step down. But I can put. There's lots of other things on my address if you'll put something else on.
Fine, we can. And then, so in terms, thank you for that, and thanks for putting the report together. In terms of the business advisory board and the process of recruitment, and I think particularly the ambition to make sure that we are absolutely engaging with different voices, different communities, absolutely recognising that this is something that is genuinely seeking to get a diversity of thought into the room. Does anybody have any further reflections, comments, questions, queries?
Just, I completely agree with that. And I know I've been to Andy and Philip, we've been working on this, and what you've said is exactly what I've been going on about. We don't want the same faces at the table. It's not a case of we'll move on to that. We want something different there. Yeah. And I think part of that as well is the terms, the tenure for these, we'll look at it differently. So you're going to get more rotation. So you're going to get different people around the table from representative bodies as well. So yeah, I'm quite encouraged, and I hope we get a good response.
Yeah, and I think we've all got a job to do to make sure that we don't just put this out in the normal way, but we're putting it out in different ways as well. So, using our networks. Kevin?
Yeah, thanks, Richard. So it's about the business advisory board. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, absolutely, Kevin, yeah.
So I've made this point in a different forum, but I think it's worthwhile just emphasising it again. At the moment, so, as far as I can tell, there's no specific representation from the universities on the business board, and I think that there's a risk that we find that causes problems down the line. We've obviously got business representative groups, which is quite right, and I know we've got a representative from the skills board, but that won't necessarily be anybody who's engaged with one of the universities. The reason why I think it's important to have really good connectivity is that not only are the two universities big businesses in themselves, but they're extensively engaged with business support across a huge range of research, innovation, knowledge exchange, and so forth. And therefore, I think that there's a bit of a risk that down the line you'll find that conversations happen at the board that are not aware of developments that are highly relevant within one of the universities. So it may be for a further reflection at a later point about membership, or it may be that there's other ways of getting that connectivity. But if we don't get it right, there's a likelihood of obstacles in terms of progress.
Thank you, Kevin. And he's writing all that down.
I think we talked about that as well.
Yeah, they're very really good points, Kevin, and we are aware of them. I think, first of all, the Mayor's Economic Advisory Council, the VCs, the universities are key members of it. So there's, well, I suppose, playing devil's advocate and being honest in the room, the universities don't need another forum to engage. They are plugged in a whole bunch of ways. So I think it's that second bit about making sure you build connectivity without having membership of, and everyone obsesses about membership of a board. It's the other things, the networks and routes and things you're plugged into. So I think we do need to make sure that there's a line of sight. But I'm going to take your point entirely, but I would argue the investment zone work's been a great example of there's a really good business group, set of people, businesses convened to help inform that process, plugged into both the universities, and it's worked quite well without having a formal sort of governance board sat over the top of it. But I think you are, it's not me disagree with any points you make, Kevin, it's just how we do it. Rather than, I would argue, I don't think we need to add universities into a business advisory board. There are other ways of plugging that sort of corporate voice in.
I mean, I'll bring Yasmin in a second, Andy. Just one comment I would make. I would presume that from a governance point of view, you'll have a regular review of membership anyway, won't you, in terms of what's working. Yeah. So there's also that aspect as well to review. Devin?
Yeah, I mean, I think with all these things, it's getting the structures right in the networks, isn't it, across the whole the region. And I'd really echo the point that Andy made about the IZ working group. And I think actually, I think that is a really important forum. And I think if we continue that with university engagement as we develop the growth plans, I think that's a really, really useful place for the universities to sit.
You, Peter.
Well, at the risk of sort of taking a different position, I tend to share Kevin's concern, because if the business advisory board is there to inform big picture strategy work, and it talks about real world testing and acting as a mechanism for dialogue, and we've talked about our plans for the region, and one of the big problems for the region, which Dave Smith, as the previous chief executive, always went on about, is our lack of an OEMs. We don't have OEMs, and the SME economy cannot drive us to where we want to be. We've got to get investments like we've just seen on the investment zone. So who is going to actually deliver that except via the universities, because it's innovation, technology, new business at a large scale. So therefore, if you're going to be an effective business advisory board, I would have expected the academic institutions to be heavily involved as members of that. And I'm wondering whether the reticence to do that is driven by the fact that somebody's decided there should only be 12 people on this, which is a little bit short-sighted in my view. If you had 18 people, you would be able to get the representative bodies and the academic institutions and have a meaningful recruitment process, because there are so few slots left now for the people we're supposed to be going to in business community to fill in the gaps in that business advisory board. I'm not sure it's even going to attract people, because they're going to think, well, when I read it, we've got diversity and gender balance to consider as well. What chance do I have if I'm a male? Am I really going to have a chance of getting on? So quite a lot of consideration, but I do think that OEM thing and the fact that needs to drive our growth in our economy means that a business advisory board really, really needs that academic, practical academic aspect.
Andy,
the arguments. I probably disagree, Peter, really. That's my personal view. I think universities have a platform to engage with the region and do across a whole range of mechanisms. I think the IZ point is really, if we're going to land some OEMs, we'd love to, we want to grow our own. The IZ might be the vehicle to do that. The universities are plugged in, and the Mayor's Economic Advisory Council will be having those conversations about the really big things we need to do. Business Advisory Board needs to be kicking the tires of our apprenticeship policy, or our business support policy, or our supply chain program, calling out the IZ policy. It's that real worlding is the kind of like, well, actually, how does it feel to me as a business doing it right now? Access to finance being another one on the list, I think. So I don't disagree with the diagnosis that OEMs are important and there's important and the universities are key anchors for it. But they're not the only anchors for OEM development. And I'd argue their voice, the university's voice, and I hope if Quinn was here or Chris or Kevin would say that their voice is not heard in the region.
I think if you've got businesses who are actively engaged in R&D and innovation and interfacing with the universities, then that is absolutely critical. I appreciate the need for diversity within the business advisory board, and we've got a challenge, haven't we, to get more and more businesses engaging with the universities. So I think we need, whilst increasing that diversity, we need to make sure that we have really, really strong advocates, which invariably is going to need some of the same old faces in the room to kind of really push that message and draw the long tail. So it's a difficult one. I think I see both sides of the argument, but I do think a lot of what we're going to achieve is going to be achieved through how we operate and not necessarily through the groups that we sit on.
Let me just bring Kevin in, and then I think we're not going to resolve this particular set of the conversation today, but it's useful to hear the views.
Yeah, so thanks. I suggest that it's about seeing how it operates, Andy. I think, isn't it? And it may be that you're right, and that we can get a broadly seamless connection. I think a big thing will be how the Mayoral Advisory Council works as compared to the Business Advisory Board, and it may well be that having vice chancellors on that board is sufficient to make sure that strategically the universities are aligned with the region's trajectory. We need to bear in mind that below the vice chancellors, the engagement is at a relatively operational level. So we won't get any other sort of strategic level engagement, or we won't necessarily get any strategic level engagement below the vice chancellor level. So it would be the Mayoral Advisory Council that would be the key to that. So I think it's about seeing how it works and reflecting on it after a year.
I think, Kevin, I was going to wrap up with exactly that. I mean, I made the point earlier about membership. I think it is about having a nimble and flexible approach, an open approach to membership. What works will work. And I think we're not going to be held hostage by our own governance, are we? We're going to make sure that we move to the form that we need as the function dictates. So I think that's a very sensible way forward. Okay. Go on, Neil.
Can I just ask, just for interest, really, in terms of the Mayoral Advisory Council, is that on track to be in place for September?
Yes, it is.
That sounded confident.
Well,
it's a long yes, that wasn't it?
Well, because we haven't set limits on how many.
No, I know.
And the process, you can, if we approach 10 people and 5 are involved, you establish the board and get it going.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of, it's not wrapped in by as much governance and kind of governance as we would say.
Okay, and one other question, just again for interest. Obviously, the matter boards have gone. Have the portfolio roles now been identified and who's doing what?
They have. So Mayor Jones is politician on the board. So the leaders and the mayor have agreed to set up portfolios. We're just working now through with each of those leaders and the chief exec model what the scope of those portfolios are and aren't before public.
I was going to say, so that will get issued publicly again by September.
It'll be September.
September again. Okay.
Yeah, that currently is the proposal that we've confirmed in September.
Okay, Yasmin. Last point.
Andy knows what I'm going to say here because I was at record. I think this is the bit that concerns me in terms of the where's the Economic Advisory Council is there is a innovation portfolio, and that's the thing that is I've kind of been really pushing quite hard for. Noted yet again, please.
Noted. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the next agenda item, which I'm going to move past agenda item 6 for now because Duncan is joining us from Lord Gritstone. He's coming for 12:15, which means one of the reasons why I wanted to conclude that conversation is because I want to give Andy 15 minutes to do the PLP, if that's okay. Because I think we can do that before we then move on to Northern Gritstone. So agenda item 7, please, Andy.
Yep, thank you, Richard. So a Northern Pan Regional Partnership, what is that? Well, that's an excellent question. At the moment, across the north, there is no single, and maybe this is right, there is no single body that brings together conversations on skills or trade and investment or place making, culture. There is, though, a set of institutions and organisations doing things in that space. So Peter will know Transport for the North is the subnational transport body for the north of England, focusing on major transport infrastructure to unlock growth across the north. There is the NP11, which is the Northern Powerhouse 11, which is the collection of the 11 LEPs across the north of England, who have had lots of really good work on trade and investment, particularly bits around place and culture, bits around innovation. And you will be aware that a lot of that comes together every year through something called the Convention of the North, which is a big collection of political, civic and business engagement on a kind of every year. We have a big thing where we invite some ministers and we sort of set out our strategic goals for the North. And that has worked really well. In other parts of the country, there's a slightly more uniform model or sort of slightly more formal sets of engagements, and these are through pan-regional partnerships. Midlands Engine is kind of one that everyone probably sort of understands or knows exists. We don't have a Northern Powerhouse Engine sort of model. The proposal, and it is still just a proposal, is that we explore the establishment of a pan-regional partnership, which will still informally bring a lot of those things together. So instead of it just being 11 LEPs talking about particular things pertinent to LEPs, and then Transport for the North talking about things particularly pertinent to transport, and then a whole bunch of other groups, there's a sort of better way of at least coordinating that with a set of objectives around better advocacy, better strategic alignment of objectives, all of it, actually a transport agenda driven by sort of economic agenda rather than just pure sort of transport focus. So there is a positive case for better northern working. That said, the north is pretty diverse. It's pretty big, and it is not uniform in its priorities. Its geography, it has coastline, it has urban centres, it has towns, and big rural areas. And South Yorkshire's got all of those things apart from the coast. So this paper really, I think, tries to just set out for the LEP, and the MCA's had a similar discussion. Is that we broadly on board with the move towards this? Are the principles underpinning the development of a pan-regional partnership the right principles? And then I suppose the really important thing to talk about is like, how do we in South Yorkshire want to like insert ourselves into anything that's established at that sort of northern level? And if we did, what are the things we want to keep pushing? Can't answer all those today, but this paper wants to just inform board members that it's happening and that we need to probably start sticking our oar in development of its work.
Thank you for that. Very useful. I've got some comments to make, but I won't say those to the end. Maybe. Anybody want to make any comments about the proposals, Peter?
Thanks for the paper. I just would like to know how we're going to actually make sure we get a good result out of this for South Yorkshire. Are we going to have, for example, a working group set up involving those people who need to be involved, business representatives and public sector representatives, to make sure that we do bolt in? Because our involvement in MP11 as South Yorkshire has been a bit light touch, hasn't it? Other LEPs spend a lot more time attending the national LEP conferences, and there's other events which happen. And I don't think we historically have done a lot of that. And And if we're going to be effective in this new organisation, maybe it's the time to step up, and to do that, we need to find out what we do want. And to find out that, don't we need a working group?
The working group is an interesting idea. I would agree with you, by the way, Peter, on the summary of our previous engagement. I mean, I think on a personal level, it's one of my biggest disappointments that I've become that chair with not enough time to be involved in what is now the existing MP11 or the LEP network, because actually that I think would have been something which I could have added to the region. But also from a Convention of the North perspective, I do more for Convention of the North through my existing day job than I do through the LEP job, because we're not always, I think, in the driving seat.
Well, we're not organised the same way as other LEPs, and our chair does not necessarily get paid for doing the job. Doesn't get paid for doing the job. Definitely doesn't get paid for doing the job.
No.
Whereas other areas, actually, you get paid, and you therefore can give more time.
Yeah, I accept backdated payment there. So thank you. So working groups, absolutely making sure we're in the middle of how do we get a good deal for South Yorkshire. Yasmin?
I think just building on that point, I think it's a capacity issue, isn't it? If you're going to do it, you have to make sure you've got the capacity to actually engage properly. And I just look at all the other bits and pieces that we did in the Yorkshire Humber Climate Commission, and we're not really properly at the table. And if we're going to take something on, we need to do it properly, and we can only do that if we actually realistically believe that we've got the capacity to do it.
Yeah. I think one of the interesting things for me is about this, and I know it's very draft at the moment in terms of what proposals may be and how they'll develop, but this sense of an extended membership of the MP11, if that's what it's going to be called, I doubt it would be, but and whether that also then gives opportunities for it not just to be an MCA representative role to make sure that they are the ones banging the drum for South Yorkshire, but that with an extended membership, we may get more seats around the table potentially, depending on what that membership looks like. But I completely agree with you. It's the capacity. If you look at someone like Roger in West Yorkshire, the capacity to be at the centre of things, I think is something that we haven't quite been able to demonstrate previously.
And I think the other thing is making sure that all the other structures, we need to have that coherence. It goes back to the previous conversation, doesn't it? You've got the NH, you've got NHSA, or we need to ensure that all of these structures are actually connected and talking to each other. And again, that becomes an additional capacity issue, but that needs to happen if we're going to do it well and actually you can benefit.
Yes. And I do wonder, Andy, about the Mayoral Economic Advisory Council membership and whether that's a sidebar on the JD for some of those people who you'll be approaching to make sure that we've got very credible, very senior people who also will represent us in those kind of fora that will develop through the MP11. Any further comments? Anything online about the BRP? I think in terms, I mean, I don't know if you're available now because of what's happened today, but we've got a call at 3, I think, with David. So what we haven't got, I don't think, is a time frame, well, yet, but I don't think it has of how this might develop and when something will be created. And I'm right, that's correct, isn't it?
Unless our government colleagues can, because partly this is, this is partly driven by sort of, ministers and that type to do better at the northern level. So I think we may find out more later on. The MP11 have effectively decided, agreed, been supported to take on the work to get it to the point where we have a proposal and proposition to put to partners and partners leveling up. So we may find out more if you want me to agree. But what I'm hearing there is that there is a real appetite for us to do better and for us to be inserted in it rather than watch it from over afar.
Yes, I think that's exactly what I think we're saying. And do better earlier, I think, is also crucial. I think a lot of the time we know that as things start to form, if we're not part of the debate from the get-go and expressing a huge ambition to be leaders in this space, then by the time we come to the table, we might be picking up crumbs. So I think that the earlier and then that's why I'm pleased we're talking today, because I think the earlier the intervention, the earlier we can put our flag in the ground, so to speak, the better. Okay, great. And let's host it in Sheffield or South Yorkshire.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's essential for us.
West Yorkshire next to the convention.
Yes.
Of making a play.
But we should have our first meeting of the PLP here. So we are early for Duncan. So Philip, I know the last item never takes too long. So can you just wrap up agenda item 9 for us, please?
I am here. I'm just coming. Hello. Yeah, no, I think it's just an update on our progress against projects, and if, as usual, you're happy just to take it as read, then I'd be happy with that.
I was hoping you'd go for a bit longer than that.
All right. Well, here goes. So there's a few things on the there's a few things on the paper. There's a new apprenticeship hub which we've launched, which will create at least 300 new apprentices by 2026. On the paper, there's also the welcoming of a new civil service policy hub in Sheffield, a plan to create a major policy campus in Sheffield, part of wider work by the civil service to decentralise policy and decision making outside of Whitehall. There's ongoing work to continue to fight to save Doncaster Sheffield Airport, and this is the item about how South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority on the 5th of June approved a funding package to support the reopening of Doncaster Sheffield Airport, a £3.1 million package for the CPO process. There's an item about South Yorkshire celebrating Employee Ownership Day at Gripple, and that took place on the 23rd of June. And there's also an item about a new member of our team joining the active travel team, Nicola Marshall, who is the boss of Sweaty Betty, and so she joins Ed Clancy and Oliver Coppard on their active travel work. So I hope that sums up the paper for you.
Brilliantly timed, Philip. Thank you for stressing that. I do have a question actually, just out of interest with Nicola's appointment. Is that an executive officer role that she's taking up, or is that a voluntary role?
It's an executive officer role.
Yeah. Thank you.
She should be doing the doing.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions, Kevin?
Yeah, thanks, Philip. Yeah, great to see the new apprentice. Great to see the new apprentice hub launched. Just a quick query about that. I'm also aware that South Yorkshire is establishing a levy sharing fund, and are the two projects connected? So will the hub be the vehicle for the levy sharing work as well, or is that separate?
I don't have the answer to that. I'm hoping that Andy might.
Well,
it was Khalil Kirkwood is the relevant officer that was working on the levy sharing hub.
So it's the same team working on it, which doesn't mean necessarily it's joined up. There are challenges about joining up, just in terms of where the funding sits. And as you can imagine, the concept is great. The actual reality is very difficult to make happen. But if we can make the levy action service work with the apprenticeship hub, we will. But I don't think it's a cast iron promise, because it's actually quite difficult in reality. But as you will be aware, in BFE world, apprenticeships is something that is not devolved, is never going to be devolved under the current government approach. So anything we ever do on apprenticeships is always, I wouldn't say fiddling around the edges, which is trying to make best of a system that is pretty narrow in flexibility scope, if I'm being horribly euphemistic. Is that fair? Joseph and Yasmin?
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Yasmin?
My point was about the policy hub, looking at our government colleagues. I think it's great and there's great potential, but I think until we get some really senior civil service membership into Sheffield and really try to make it fly, then it's going to be very slow. So I guess the point is, I think we need to put pressure on.
Yes.
And on that, I think there is about 20 or 30 serious concerns in Sheffield across DWP and the FE. So there aren't, it's not a shortage necessarily, but there's not a permanent secretary based there, as it is in other regions, or at least have a temporary base there. So that's a fair point. And yeah, obviously the running on that so far been done by DFE and DWP, who have got the large percentages, but there's a home for the whole of the civil service resort need to kind of test that out. So yeah, very challenging.
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting point. I agree. You know, we need to put the pressure on, keep our foot on the floor, whatever the euphemism is. I think there's something for me about the work we do in West Yorkshire with the HSC, Health and Social Care, where they've effectively wrapped their arms around the city with a clear statement of our twin ambitions. I think is a model that we can use the campus to try and get more government departments to decide what they can do for us. But I think, having senior representative here, I think would be very important. Thank you. Philip, thank you very much for that. Duncan, welcome. Duncan, if it's okay with you, I'm not going to ask everyone to introduce themselves, but what I will do is when we do have questions and comments after your update, I'll ask people to just introduce themselves then, if that's okay. You've got a number of us here in the room, and as you can see, colleagues online as well. So over to you.
Well, look, first of all, it's very nice to meet you all, and thank you very much for inviting me to come and tell you a little bit about Northern Gritstone and where we've got to and what we're looking to try and achieve. There was a short presentation I think hopefully you've all had, which is really a brochure rather more than anything else. So I wasn't planning on putting anything up on the screen, and to be honest with you, that's actually beyond my technical capability anyway, so that was unlikely to happen. So Northern Gritstone has been going 2 years now, and we had our first close in May last year. So in terms of really being up and running and doing what we're here to do, that started at the end of May last year. And what we have been created, or the initial spark for Northern Gritstone came from universities of Leeds, Manchester and Sheffield working together, and in a rather put up or shut up mentality decided to put up. And that was to say, okay, we have this amazing science, it's not getting funded in terms of for commercialization activity. There's some interesting models that are going on in the market, in particularly over at Oxford. We can copy that, and we can found a business. So that was the start of the journey, solving for a problem, that there's not enough capital coming to invest in science innovation in the UK, full stop. And when you look at the numbers in the north of England, truly appalling. So in 2019, only £22 million out of 1.2 billion came to the whole of the north of England, just to put it into the problem we're solving for. Yet, when you combine the three founder universities, Leeds, Manchester and Sheffield, they are the #1 producer of IP in the UK. So what a innovation blind spot. So that's really the opportunity. We set ourselves up as a company. So we're not a fund, and we set ourselves up as a company so that our capital matched the funding journey of the investee companies. So a lot of the issues come about, not actually on the seed rounds, the start of the journey, but sort of on the first stop and the second stop, where there isn't the capital available to do that. So, excuse me, one of the reasons we did it as a company, so we could be the part of the balance sheet that was there through that journey, so we could coalesce investors at each stage around that. And I think that has resonated, and we're already seeing that actually play out. So today we have an investment team of 7 people. We have raised £310 million for this. We are still looking to close out the final 2 investors, which will hopefully take us to just under 400 million of funding. So on the basis that we invest anywhere between 200,000 and £1 million at the seed round, it's a lot of capital. And we are looking to run 80 to 100 investments in businesses. And we've invested in 9 to date, with, in fact, 10 to date. 1 closed out yesterday. We've just not announced it. and we have another 5 going through in the next month. We have backed 2 businesses in South Yorkshire to date. No, 3 in South Yorkshire to date. I've got that wrong. So that our first 2 investments were in South Yorkshire. One at the AMRC, a business called Isotope. Another one which was a spin out from Sheffield University, but had already received funding, called Opteran. And another one which was a spin out from Sheffield University called Foulkes. All of those amazing businesses. Between them employ about 110 people, all on slightly different stages of that journey. One of the next 5 investments that's closing out is the first investment into the gene manufacturing centre on the AMRC, backing Mamoon, Azuz and Pam Shaw in a gene therapy business there. And we're sort of up and running, and we're doing what we're looking to do. We have leveraged the capital we have invested so far 3-fold. So, and I think that's probably a ratio that will carry on. And Oliver calls out a very nice stat that the investing we did in the first month of operating was already double what had happened in the previous 2 years. And what I can tell you is, and I can say this to you because of who you are, our best partner is Sheffield. There is absolutely no doubt about that. What Kuhn, the university, and Andy Hogburn, the TTO, have done is create a very entrepreneurial, transparent, open environment where they are making it as easy as it can be. And it's never going to be super easy, because founding businesses for anybody isn't that easy. But they have created a culture and a methodology and a modus operandi that is making it as easy as possible for academics to get their science commercialized. I use a sort of description of, we want the businesses to be looking like Linford Christie on the start line. And too many of them look like Duncan Johnson at the moment. But the ones coming from Sheffield are, I mean, Ben White at Flux, which we backed last year, which is a new material used in LiDAR sensors. He'd already manufactured 30,000 sensors pre the startup. He already had commercial traction with 3 OEMs. The university have put him on a training course called iCure. And Ben is about as good as it gets, if I'm being really honest with you. And we funded in a £3.5 million seed round, which is a good size seed round. But the business merited that size raise because it was that good. And that is part of what Sheffield is doing so well. So the plans for this year are to close out the fundraising, hopefully get to just shy of the 400 million mark, which is more than enough capital for us to be effective. And we are looking to launch next week Northern Gritstone Innovation Services, which is our incubation and venture building capability. So making this work is more than just the capital. It is about providing some commodity skill sets, but also some added value skill sets around venture building. And that is lacking in the market at the moment. And it's key in nudging that risk reward to push us, give us a better chance of success. So we're launching that this year. We'll spread that out between the Yorkshire side and the Manchester side. And what we're looking there is help the businesses be better, quicker. That's what that is all about, and being able to compete. So shall I stop there, and having hopefully painted what I hope comes across as a positive picture, because it is positive, and please fire away on questions. I'm very happy to answer anything.
Duncan, thank you so much for that. That was really illuminating, really. Looking around the room, any immediate questions for Duncan from that?
We were fortunate because Duncan, it's Neil MacDonald, Duncan presented to us at the business advisory group, so we had, and that went down so well with the business bodies there. So yeah, I've seen some of this before, so it's just so good to hear it. So thanks again, Duncan.
No, that's brilliant, and I can tell you that the attitude in Sheffield to making this work is superb, and I think we've got so many initiatives with the university, with yourselves, with Sheffield Hallam as well, that we've got some proper momentum here.
Peter?
It's fantastic to hear, and I just want to know what the business community can do more to get the awareness of Northern Gritstone up. What more can we do when talking to businesses across South Yorkshire? It's great to hear about the Sheffield side of things. What more can we do, or should we be doing?
So I sort of think we're on a journey. We're always on a journey, and we've been going effectively a year and a smidge at the moment. What I feel we need to do is manifestly show we know what we are doing, and that we have a success story, and therefore that gives us the credibility to go and talk to other people within the broader area. Say, okay, this is what we do. This is how we can help you. Certainly, Northern Gritstone Innovation Services is a business line. It is there to help other businesses, not just within our portfolio, but others within our sort of catchment area, which is the north of England, but focused around Sheffield, Leeds, and Manchester. And you know, once that is up and running and we have the capability, we will certainly be out there looking to introduce that skill set into the wider community. 30% of what we can invest in is non-founding university businesses, so that's quite a large pot of money. So, but we've got to get what we're doing now right and successful, I think, to earn the right to go out to sell it to other people. And I'm always slightly nervous of overstretching ourselves. We're always overstretched. It's just making sure the businesses we have back now, we do a very good job on, because I think that's what matters, because that will mean that more money will flow, we'll get more success, all those things. If we cock up this first lot, that's not good news, clearly. You know, it's important that we make a good fist of it.
No, absolutely right, Duncan. I'm really interested in your comments at the end about the innovation. Did you put the innovation service, innovation support service?
Yeah, Northern Gritstone Innovation Services. So that's how we're badging that.
And will that, do you think that will be something that has a physical location? You talked about working on both sides of the Pennines on that. Is that something that you see as incubator space, or is it something that's more of a virtual support?
So I think that's going to be, here we go, a bit of the both. So we're seeing it as a sort of 3-layered cake. The bottom of the cake is effectively commodity services we provide and have panel access to other people. So that is doing accounts for people, making sure they've got the right IT supplies, all those things you actually need to get going as a business. And it's slightly pejorative, but I put them in sort of the commodity camp. That will have a physical presence. That's likely to be in Sheffield, if I'm honest with you. That's where we are thinking of housing that. And the next piece is then the venture building piece, which sits around initially 2 elements, but will grow out. One is talent management, making sure we are attracting in the best people. So that's curating that group of people who is always inbound to us and we know and we meet, but also being sort of headhunters of headhunters. It's really important we get better quality people at the start of the journey. I mean, if we look across at what works really well in, say, Cambridge in the UK, but particularly in the US, they spend their money they raise on getting world-class people from day one. And we need to get into that habit that nickel and diming it is good news. We need to push quicker on getting there. So the talent management piece is part of NG Innovation Services. And the other bit that is a bit of a bugbear of mine is we don't think sufficiently early about market and product. So why will somebody buy this? How will they buy it? How do we therefore go about selling it, pricing it? What does it need to look like for the two things to match? And again, that is having quality business development people from day one. I think that is a service we will provide either with one or two type of management consultant types. But that's the bit we're looking to build this year. And then the final bit in the sort of three-tier cake is the whole community piece. So that is, we've started having conversations with the 3 founding universities to get access to their alum, to say, okay, we want a community here of not just skills, but but potential angel funding. So in Manchester, we founded, or one of the founding partners of Manchester Angels. We are trying to get the same group to come up with Yorkshire Angels. We would put our shoulder to the wheel of that. But it's this general community build, which we would look to hold events, curate, whatever the right terms are for that, to get that skill set to bear in the businesses we're backing. So that's what we're looking NG Innovation Services to be.
Yeah, that's really useful. Thank you for expanding on that. I mean, I think all those layers of the cake are incredibly interesting to us. Great that you think about Sheffield as a location. I think we'd also want to talk more about how we can make sure that those offers are integrated into existing services as well, so that there's almost a seamless, innovative ecosystem where they're not having to navigate themselves, but we make sure that we are each other's ambassadors and we can signpost the right people at the right time to you and vice versa. Because I think becoming known as an ecosystem that's easier to navigate, has several front doors, but actually we all know each other so that we can actually make sure people get to the right conversation, would I think only enhance our brand as the place to grow your business. So something to think about, I think, as you start to think about the services in more depth.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more on that. I think it is not necessarily easy to access lots of these things at the moment. So I think coordination matters. I mean, meetings like this are really helpful, but you know, we are spread pretty thin at the moment. So, you know, as things settle down, I think we need to spend more time making sure we are intertwined with what's going on locally through the LEPs, through innovation systems and all that sort of good stuff. So I couldn't share that view more, to be honest with you. It's just we need to get going, and then we need to make sure we're leveraging what's already there and helping enhance what's already there, not being in competition, you know.
No, absolutely not. And given, you know, how thinly you're spread, it's about recognizing there's probably a useful latent field force if we know what you're looking for. And I think it's that kind of action that we can, you know, benefit all of us to serve. Okay. Duncan, I'll just ask again, any further comments, questions, Duncan? Can't see any virtual hands. Duncan, you actually have I don't know if it's the privilege or the pleasure of being the final agenda item on the final ever South Yorkshire Mayoral Coastal Left Board. And you've been giving us very positive, a very, very positive view of the future. So thank you for doing that. And I'm sure in the different organisational forms that the LEP will be moving into, we'll be continuing this conversation with you on behalf of South Yorkshire. But thank you very much for joining us, Duncan, and we'll let you go now. Thanks.
No, but also thank you very much for your support. You know, we had the investment from Simco, which was brilliant, and no, I'm really positive about what is going on at the moment, and you know, we will do our bit to get where we all want to get to. So it's good news. So thank you.
Thank you, Duncan. And that brings us to the end. I would like to say that I've got a 2-hour speech now. Oh yeah, sorry, Peter.
Yeah, it's only a very important point, Chair, but it's important because the LEP is coming to an end right now. What actually physically happens to bring the LEP to an end? Is it a resolution of the MCA? And when will that actually happen? Because I only ask because there are ongoing commitments of LEP board members. And if the LEP was to stay in existence in a sort of dormant fashion for some time, it means it just puts off the day at which they have to be addressed. TFM being one example. Neil's got some commitments as well, haven't you?
There's a couple, and we've talked about this issue of the M, which are both progress. I mean, I've changed whether we need to be letting members to do that or whether it has to put to peaceful, whether it's say why to put the end of August, I don't know. So
it's a question.
I think you can make that LinkedIn profiles, obviously.
When it winds up is the question. Because TFN, for example, you do have to be a elect board member to sit on TFN.
Whereas my two roles, I don't think technically you do.
So it would be helpful if it didn't end.
I'm not going to pretend I know the answer technically.
I've seen the MCA ones.
Yeah. So we'll.
On that as well, just something coming in on the TFN requirement to have a elect board member, that clearly needs to change from there.
No, we are working on that. And
Exactly.
the reason I mention it is that next week I'm vice chair of general purposes committee. It's on the agenda, and there's a question of whether I can attend to actually deal with the issue.
With colleagues as well, because clearly this is again just slightly ahead of the curve in terms of LEPs probably won't exist anywhere in the country.
Yes.
Going forward, or at least they'll be rebadged and renamed. Exactly.
And we were aware of that. I think TFN were taken slightly by surprise that we were ahead of the game.
Yeah.
So it was really just a question of if the MCA has to resolve something, or it's already resolved it.
I think it is resolved to do it. I suspect September is where we do this is what we now almost suspect it probably.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to carry on then and just say to them until further.
But
confirm it though anyway.
I will. We will confirm that, Peter, but I think yes, last board meeting, but the work of the lab goes on until otherwise it's a host on California time. Kevin.
Yeah, so this is just a different point, if that's okay. It was just some personal news. I will follow up with some colleagues individually, but I'll be leaving Sheffield Hallam in October to join the University of Hull as their new Deputy Vice Chancellor. And so I because I work quite closely with a lot of you, I just thought it'd be important to try to keep some contacts going, and also I'm aware that South Yorkshire and the Humber need to work together a bit more closely. So hopefully in my new role I'll be able to try to ensure that happens. And it's been great working with you all. So thanks very much.
Congratulations, Kevin.
Thanks.
I presume you know the Chancellor well, the Vice Chancellor well over there.
Well, yeah, and despite him knowing me, I still got the job.
No, brilliant, absolutely great, and I'm delighted you're staying in Yorkshire. So thank you for letting us know. Any other business for anybody? In which case, the only thing I was going to say, because I don't have a 2-hour speech, is just thank everyone for their support of me stepping into Lucy's considerable shoes. It's been a pleasure to chair this meeting, and I recognise I'm standing on many people's shoulders. We had a dinner a few months ago where I made a similar speech, but just to, I think, shout out to people like Neil and Peter in particular, who have done so much work for that and continue to do so, as we just discussed, for a few months to go. As Oliver said earlier, most of it is invisible. Most of it doesn't happen around this table or tables like this one. This is just really, I think, where the paperwork gets discussed, but the work happens elsewhere. So I'm incredibly in awe of the work everyone does and the time that they spend doing it. I've had a blast. I think one of the things that I think is the most important thing to say is that the people stay the same. So although we talked about diversity, although we talked about bringing new people in, I am absolutely certain that everyone around this table and others who can't be with us today are part of the infrastructure of how South Yorkshire delivers on its ambition. So we'll probably all have different job roles and different job titles, but I imagine we've all still got work to do in one form or another. And with that, I will close the meeting. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Cheers.
Thank you. There you go. Wow.